Hi, everybody. I'm looking forward to sharing my 26 years of admissions consulting experience with you during the next hour. My name is Linda Abraham. I want to thank you very much for coming. Before we begin, I want to mention one more time, I don't know if it's the last time, but one more time, that we're going to be using Post-it notes or index cards during the course of the webinar. And I see that people are logging on from all around San Francisco, Dallas. Looks like we have if anybody else wants to share, I'm always curious about that, where people log on from for these master classes. So please share that in the chat window if you can. If you've not yet downloaded your webinar worksheet, please take a second to do so. My recommendation is that you actually print it out. We're going to use it in the course of the webinar. Portland, Oregon, welcome. Los Angeles, ooh, a neighbor. I'm also in Los Angeles, Michael. Anybody else want to share where they're located from? Where they are located or where they are logging in from? Again, print out your worksheet. That's my recommendation. I think it will help you get the most from today's masterclass. Now we're going to use the question window for your questions and the chat window for your answers to my questions, including the one, somebody from Nigeria. That's pretty far. Welcome. All right. Near and far, if you want to share where you're logging in from in the chat window, that would be great. Just like, again, answers to my questions, just like the login information or the geographic information, you can do that in the chat window. Questions you can pose at any time in the question window. We have allowed time for a Q&A at the end, and I'll be answering your questions then, but you can post them at any point during the masterclass. You can win. We're going to have a cool contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar, so stay tuned. You could win a 15-minute consultation with me, and by the way, that's just about the only way to work one-on-one with me. I'm at this point not working directly with clients, but I love doing these consultations. And like I said, you can win a consultation at the end of the presentation or towards the end of it. When you leave, you're going to receive a brief survey. Please fill it out. We value your feedback, and I do look at it and consider it very seriously. Now, let's test your hand raising skills. I know you're all experienced Zoom users, so please raise your hand if you are here because business school will whisk you on your way to the career of your dreams. Well, you're all doing really well on that one. Yeah. You're here for the right reasons. Good. You can, yeah, and you know how to use Zoom. Okay. You can lower your hands. Great. Before we dive into the content, I'd like you to do a little exercise with me. Again, I'm really committed to making this masterclass as useful as it can possibly be. I'd like you to take a bunch of those Post-it notes or index cards, or if you must, small pieces of note paper, and on each note, write a different application, strength, or weakness for yourself. In other words, not one card or one Post-it note for one strength or one weakness. Okay? Just write them down for yourself. Examples of strengths would be a high GPA or a high test score. Each one is a strength. Different leadership experiences, diversity elements in your profile, achievements that you've had, contributions that you've made, impacts, those kinds of things. Examples of weaknesses would be a low GPA or low test score, little or no leadership experience, overrepresented group in MBA admissions, any of those things. And again, one strength or one weakness per note or index card or whatever your piece of paper, whatever you're writing on. And then I'd like you to take your Post-it notes and for now, place them on the first sheet of your worksheet in either the Pro Round 3 or the Pro Next Year column. And you're going to play with that throughout the presentation or most likely after it. So let's give you a minute to do that. And maybe raise your hand when you finish this part of the exercise. Okay, just quick notes for yourself. Write down again strengths, weaknesses, and then post them in the Pro Round 3 or Pro Next Year column on your worksheet. If you have a question, again, you can post it in the question window. Okay, so Shannon's done. Please raise your hands when you finish this little exercise, and I'm going to move on. A couple of people are finished. Great. Getting a few more. Again, please raise your hand when you're finished. As I go through the master class or after it, you can move the post-it notes around or the index and add post-it notes to these two columns. Hopefully by the end of the webinar, it will be much clearer to you when you should apply with this very simple tool and exercise. I'd like about a few more to raise their hands if they're finished with the exercise, and then we'll move on. For those who just joined us, I've asked participants in this master class to take post-it notes, and on each post-it note, list a strength or a weakness. So it's one strength or one weakness to one post-it note, and then using your worksheet, which is linked to from the chat window. Maybe post that link again for people who arrived late. Carly, please, okay? And print that out, and then you can put your post-it notes in the either round 3 or next to your column, and you can move it around in the course of the webinar as you learn more about the things that you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Okay. And let's post the first poll. Okay. Which best describes you? Applying for the first time, round 3 or next year? Applied round 1 or round 2 of this cycle? Applied previously, but not this year. Okay. Again, the options are applying for the first time, round 3 or next year, applied round 1 or round 2 of this cycle, or applied previously, but not this year. Okay. Great. We have a very participatory group this today. Fantastic. 80% having voted. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to close the poll. And the results are that 74% are applying for the first time. Okay. And 26% applied previously this year. Nobody applied previously, but not this year. Okay. That's great. Good to know. All right. And then let's go on. I think, is there another poll here? No, we're going to just move forward. Okay. So share the results, please. Oh, or you already did. Okay. No problem. Let's close this then and move forward. Now, this is the time of year when I get questions, lots of questions, and they're going to fall into two kind of basic categories. Like, I applied and was rejected at my first school choice schools, just wasn't qualified, I guess. Now I want to apply to lower ranked schools. Should I try round 3 or wait until next year? That would probably be the question that brings 26% of you here. And the other one goes like this. Life got in the way of applying, or I just got the Gmat score I wanted. I have my recommendations lined up. I know why I want to get an MBA and where I want to go. Should I apply round 3 or should I wait until next year? And that probably applies to at least some of the 74% who are applying for the first time. Before we move into the meat of today's webinar, I want to lay out a few ground rules or assumptions here. Sometimes my training is very prescriptive. I try to make it almost recipe-like, clear steps, clear instructions. Other times, however, the nuances of MBA admissions, and many times actually, the nuances of MBA admissions combine with the complexity of life and individual situations. And I really can't do more than raise issues and give guidelines. That's today's kind of masterclass. I gave this class almost exactly a year ago on January 16th, 2020. And think about it. That was a few days before the first COVID case was diagnosed in the US, which happened on January 20th of 2020. Social distancing, mask wearing, curfews weren't part of our reality then. Now, MBA admissions changed dramatically when March arrived, and schools suddenly realized that things were changing radically. They opened their doors wide to round 3 and round 4 applicants and even extended deadlines and added rounds. And by March and April, I was much more gung-ho on applying to these late rounds than I was when I gave this masterclass a year ago. However, and I'm sure one of the questions in everybody's mind is is this upcoming round 3 going to be like last year's round 3, or is it going to be much more like 2018, 2019, 2017, 16, et cetera, et cetera? Given the surge in application volume this year, unless schools start announcing that they are holding more spots for late round applicants, I think we are going to see a return to round 3s that looked much more like they had been in 2019 and earlier. Okay, that's my take at this point. Ross specifically announced that it liked what it saw with the late round applicants, and it's going to hold seats open for late round applicants. But I think they are the exception, especially given the increased competition that we're seeing, certainly that we saw round 1. I think we're also seeing round 2. So again, today's masterclass is about raising issues and providing guidelines. I want to shine a spotlight on the issues you should consider as you decide whether to apply now or not. And I'm going to ask for your assistance and participation as we move into the second part of the webinar. So don't get too comfortable, okay? And as for those of you who were here at the beginning, you have your post-it notes and you have the table. You can be moving things back and forth on that table as you proceed. Okay. So right now, again, I'm going to ask you in the chat window, please, what are some of the differences between round 3, round 4, and earlier rounds? In the chat window, please. Anybody have an idea? What is different? Acceptance levels. Good. Good. I think that's true. Round 3 and round 4 are more selective. Probably true. Fewer seats open, fewer scholarship money available. Absolutely. Less space. Franklin, that's exactly what I was looking for. There are more slots available in the earlier rounds. That's right, Kidjal. And I apologize if I mispronounced somebody's name here. Round 3, round 4, you're going to find that if you apply early in the rounds, the class looks like an empty theater. If you apply later in rounds, it's going to look much more like this. And it's much harder to snag those seats. Schools are looking for diversity and highly qualified applicants. They usually have less merit aid available, as one of you noted, when decisions come out. It's harder to get scholarships. Sometimes on-campus housing will be taken by the time you get an answer. And you won't be able to attend an admit weekend, even a virtual admit weekend, if you apply and are accepted round 3 or round 4. And sometimes it's harder for international students to get visas on time. In other words, in time to start classes in person. What are some indications you should apply round 3? Well, what would you say? In the chat window, please. What are some indications you should apply round 3? More experience. That can be a double-edged sword, but it could be a reason. Yeah, it could mean that you really, really want to get started. Anybody else doesn't hurt to apply besides the cost? In general, I think you're right. There's a slight possible cost to it, but it's minimal. Your application is strongest. That could be true. I mean, it's unlikely to decline in strength if you wait, but I could probably conjure up some situations where that would be true. Here's why I think certain people should apply round 3 or round 4. You're really, really ready. You really want to go this year. You have very good reasons for wanting to go this year. You have competitive test scores, grades, experience showing leadership, teamwork, initiative, resilience. You have a clear goal. You know which schools you want to apply to and why you want to apply them, and you really want to go this year. Those are the people who should apply round 3 or round 4. And you have to be willing to spend the time and money now, even for a reduced chance of acceptance, in order to have some chance of starting your business school education experience this September. Another really, I think, important element in a round 3 or round 4 application or late round application is diversity elements. And they could be ethnic, identity-related, regional, professional, or experiential. In other words, you have something really distinctive to contribute by virtue of your identity, your experience, your level of achievements, something. something exceptional that says you're going to really add to the class and community. Another possible reason to apply round 3, and this would again go with the 26% of you that have applied earlier, is you simply aim too high round 1, and you're now aiming at programs that accept a larger percentage of their class in later rounds. This is true of schools generally and roughly outside the top 20. And realize that no school has a round 3 with the sole purpose of rejecting everyone who applies round 3. Okay, now, are there any questions in the question window, please, so far on what I have presented? Okay. I see some in the chat window. Gee, I don't quite understand applying in round 3 because in case I don't get in first or second round. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. That's another reason. In other words, you already applied and you want to apply to some round 3 programs in case you don't get in from your round 2 applications. Okay, that makes sense. And then Chandra Haas wrote, if I screw up in round 3, don't you think I will have to write an additional essay, which would be challenging since profile won't be drastically improved in 6 months? That's the possible weakness. That's a possible fly in the ointment of applying round 3. However, the schools are realistic. If you applied round 3 and you were basically competitive and you reapply round 1, they're not going to expect the same kind of dramatic improvement that they would expect if you say, applied later. So if you were basically competitive and weren't admitted basically because they just didn't have room in the class because it was round 3, then you'll be considered very seriously without as much growth as they would expect from, let's say, somebody who had more time to show improvement. But you are raising a valid issue. Okay, here we have a question. Do programs give you feedback on why they didn't admit you? Would that give you an advantage for round 1 or round 2 of next year? Some programs give you feedback, but fairly few at this point in time. So I don't think obtaining feedback, unless you know and are positive the school that you are applying to will give feedback, I don't think it makes any sense. Frankly, we'll give you feedback also. It will cost about the same and actually a little more, but you'll get the feedback and you'll be set to go, good to go for next year, and you will not be. It'll be a fresh application for you. Okay. Let's move on. What are some indications you should wait until next year? From you folks in the chat window, please. What would you say are some indications you should wait until next year? In the chat window, please. What are some indications? Not an ideal Gmat score. Good. Low Gmat score. Oh, you got that one. Good. Yeah, you're right. Have not prepared essays yet. Just finished taking Gmat and just starting applications. Well, you could have the room. You could have the time to put together a good applications by the round 3 deadlines, as long as you got the Gmat behind you. If you don't have the Gmat behind you, that's a good reason to wait. I see that few of the colleges have intake round 3 of 33%. If funding is a deal breaker, good reason to wait. Absolutely, Franklin. Okay, here are some of the reasons I thought of that you should wait till next year. And the first one you all thought of. You're unhappy with your stats or your profile and feel something will improve significantly for next year. You're going to retake the GMAT or the GRE. You're going to get a promotion. You're going to get on a great assignment. You're going to suddenly get international exposure, which I realize is unusual this time, but whatever. There's going to be something significant about what's going to happen between now and round 1 or round 2 of next year. You're stressed at work and aren't sure you'll have the time necessary to put together a great application. You are from an overrepresented group and have no discernible diversity elements. Or you're on the low side in terms of experience and feel that the next 6 months will give you a lot of growth and increased responsibility. Another possibility is your post-MBA goals, your reasons for applying to specific schools at this point in time are fuzzy or shallow. And you could spend some time, and you should spend some time, clarifying both your goals and the schools that will best support those goals so that you can answer well any question about why this school. You fear that even if accepted, you'll have trouble getting your visa and financing before the start of school. That was Franklin's point. Now, let's shift gears and apply these principles. It's time for you folks to put on your admissions consultant hat, and let's go through a few examples. They're made up, but they're based on my 2.5 decades as an MBA admissions consultant. Okay? So these are all hypothetical. Okay, meet May Chang. May decided last week she wants to go for an MBA. She has 1 year of full-time work experience and hates her accounting job. She hasn't yet taken the test, but she's pretty sure she'll get at least a 700. She wants to go to Stanford or Wharton. And the reason she's only limiting herself to those two schools is because Harvard doesn't have a round 3. And she attended UC Berkeley and earned a 3.3 GPA in Asian studies. And she's not sure what she wants to do after the MBA. Raise your hand if you think May should apply round 3. Oh, you're good. You're good. So far, we only have one raised hand. I'm completely with all of those who kept your hands down. Okay. And John is saying 1 year work experience is not enough. A 3.3 GPA is low, needs a higher GMAT. Actually, she doesn't have a GMAT yet. She's confident she'll get at least a 700. She should get a higher one. You're right, for the schools that she's aiming for and her level of experience. She should also research her career options in schools. She should change jobs to something she likes and will move her closer to whatever long-term goal she settles on. Hating your job is not a good reason to go for a master's in business administration. She needs to aim higher than a 700 for those schools. You're right. And she needs to prepare for and take the GMAT or GRE or whatever, and hopefully aim for a higher score for this if she wants to go to those schools, or she needs to adjust the school she's aiming for. Okay, here's another example. Another hypothetical applicant. Well, there's her stats. Sorry, I should have posted that sooner. But here we go. Jorge. Jorge is an engineer in Mexico. He works for Pemex, the Mexican oil monopoly, and he's done so for the last 5 years. He's had steady promotions and manages 6 other engineers. He got his bachelor's with a 3.4 GPA and his master's with a 3.6 in engineering from USC. He wants to go into strategy consulting with a focus on the energy industry, and he has some analytics experience. He can get good recommendations. He's not concerned about visa issues, and he has a 730 balanced GMAT. He plays soccer on a regular basis and has been the team captain. He wants to apply to MIT Sloan, Kellogg, UT Austin, Haas, Ross, and Duke. Raise your hand if you think he should apply round 3. Raise your hand if you think he should apply round 3. Okay, about half of you say he should apply round 3. Now we're getting more. Okay, come on, raise your hand if you think he should apply round 3. Don't put it down. Okay, yes. More than half of you are raising your hands. I'm going to lower them now. Raise your hand if you think he should wait. Nobody's raising their hand. Okay, good. I agree with you entirely. Jorge should apply round 3. He's ready. He's good to go. He has diversity elements. I can, exactly, John, diversity, 5 years, work experience, promotions, leadership, career goals align with story and the schools he's choosing. So he's ready to go. What about this fellow, Ajay? He graduated from the University of Mumbai with a 70% and a BTech. He worked for Infosys for 3 years in India. He's had promotions and good recs, but all in programming. He is now a team lead. I think he has 2 reports. He has a 690 GMAT. He wants to go into investment banking and from there into private equity, venture capital. He has very limited community service. He's a member of a bunch of organizations and a leader in none. He wants to apply to Haas, Chicago, Stanford, NYU Stern, and Columbia. Raise your hand if you think he should apply round 3. Here we have. Okay. We have 3 people who raised their hands, and the rest of you have not. I agree with those that did not. For those that say he should wait, what should he do to prepare himself to apply successfully? And for those who thought he should apply, I'm wondering if you could post in the chat window why you thought he should apply. Okay. So, what should he do to prepare himself to apply successfully in the chat window? Or if you felt he should apply round 3, why do you think so? He needs to get a higher Gmat score, 100%, especially given his investment banking goals. And the schools. Exactly. Rania, you got it. He should prepare to apply to additional schools that support his goal and where he may be more competitive, especially if he doesn't raise his GMAT. That could be a program like Duke, Georgetown, perhaps University of Rochester. He should try to move more into a business role at work, a less technical role. And he should may want to consider taking the CFA or doing something more financially related to kind of demonstrate his seriousness when you talk about investment banking or IB and venture and IB PEVC. And again, more leadership. Okay, our last case study. Yes, Franklin, you got it. You're doing a good job. Okay, here's Mary. She's a female West Point grad. She graduated West Point with a 3.1 in 2017. She has a 710 GMAT. She served in Afghanistan. She's getting out of the military in April. She wants to apply to Yale SOM, Duke, Darden, Georgetown, Cornell Johnson, Ross, and USC. Her goal is international development and general management. And she really, really wants to start business school in September because she's going to get out in April. She'll travel a little bit, vacation, whatever, and then she'll be ready to start. Or I guess it'll actually is probably August. I'll give her a few months to decompress, relax before she starts business school. She'd prefer not to get a job in business before starting. Raise your hand if you think Mary should apply round 3. And if not, what should she do to prepare herself to apply successfully? Raise your hand if you think Mary should apply round 3. Okay, we have about a third of you, a little less actually, saying that she should apply round 3. I'm with those who say she should apply round 3. Okay. And I'll tell you why. She's exact, John, you're right on. She's a female vet. She's graduated from a top service academy. Her GPA, the service academies have no grade inflation. So her 3.1 actually is a competitive GPA. She has a solid GMAT and she has a very reasonable target list. 100%. You can start giving this webinar if you want next year. I think she'd be given very serious consideration. And also, if you think of the schools I listed for her, Yale SOM, Duke, Darden, Georgetown, Cornell, Johnson, Ross, USC, and her goals, there's real fit with those programs, both in terms of her qualifications and her goals. And the fact that she is a vet will help her tremendously, especially a female vet. Now, I'm going to give away a free 15-minute MBA admissions consultation to the first 2 people who answer this question correctly. And answer it in the chat window, please. Okay? Franklin is asking me before I ask my question for the contest, don't you think she needs more time for introspection for B school as it's slightly demanding in terms of coursework? Well, this woman has handled demanding up the kazoos. She went to West Point, which is the leading military academy in the United States. She served in Afghanistan. Yeah, exactly. That would tell me that she's handled demands that people who haven't been in Afghanistan or at West Point can't even imagine. Okay. Yeah, I think she'll be able to handle business school. Okay. Now for my contest question. She's a tough one. Exactly, Franklin. Okay, now for the contest question. It's really coming. Are you ready? What are 2 indications I discussed today that someone should apply round 3? In the chat window, please. Again, 2 items. Okay, John, you got it? Um, let's see. And I think Chandrahas. Okay. Okay, Chandrahas and John won the free consultation. And okay, so that's that. I'll tell you what, we'll do another little contest. I hadn't planned this, but we'll do it also. Okay. Oh, great. You folks are a fantastic audience. Okay. Thank you, Carly. Another question. Again, the top 2 are going to get a free consultation. What are 2 indications that I discussed today that you should apply in the fall or later? That you should wait. What are unsure of goals? Well, you already won, John. You're not going to win twice. 2 indications. Not happy with Franklin. You got it? Okay. And Michael, you have it. Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Now back to your worksheets, folks. Are you going to add post-it notes for other strengths and weaknesses to your worksheet? Is one column at this point much fuller than the other? I hope so. Now, I've highlighted here issues you need to consider as you decide when to apply most effectively. The bottom line lesson and the one takeaway I hope you all leave with is the decision is an individual one, which really depends on individual goals and circumstances. And that's what I've tried to illustrate in this webinar. Now, it can be hard to be objective about oneself. It can be hard to avoid the confirmation bias we're all subject to. And as I said at the beginning of the class, in a group setting, I can raise issues to think about and give guidelines, but I can't go beyond that until you take advantage of the expertise and experience that exists on accepted staff. One-on-one, we can explore and help you develop an action plan based on your worksheet. Now, you may also want to consider your responses to the following questions. How important is it to you to start your MBA in September versus waiting a year? How important is it to you and the achievement of your career goals to go to a top MBA program? How important is it to you that you apply only once or have a chance of acceptance earlier, or I should say once more? How can you optimize your application, whether you decide to apply round 3 or next year? Now, we would love to guide you in choosing when and where to apply, and then in optimizing your MBA applications so that you apply confidently and successfully. Thousands of successful MBA applicants have benefited from our support during Accepted's 26 years in business. They know how to apply to the right schools at the right time and in an optimal way. The MBA application process isn't easy. I'm sure you realize that. You're juggling work, life, family, community service, and applications. It's hard to know where to apply and how to apply. Let us be a resource to you on an individual basis. Now, when you engage with Accepted, you get access to expertise and experience that comes from decades on both sides of the admissions desk, because that's what our staff has. You get the confidence that comes when you know you're working with a seasoned, dedicated, top-notch pro, and you get options to choose from. So you can choose a service that fits your needs so you can save time and apply effectively. Now, some may say that Accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. But our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA. And furthermore, there are expensive risks and less obvious risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s, especially if you have to prep for a test again or you have travel expenses to interviews in the future. There's one additional year of pre-MBA earnings, and that can cost you in the 5 figures because presumably you'll get a boost in your salary after your MBA, and you'll have one more year of that higher salary level once you earn your MBA. There's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with higher lifelong earnings and network. And I'll let you calculate that cost. And many clients say that we help them get merit aid. So their investment in our service frequently pays off in spades. Now, every year, applicants who talked to us a year earlier and got rejected when taking the do-it-yourself approach come back and work with us. We're happy to assist them, but they would have been better off working with us initially and so would you. Now let's hear from a couple of accepted clients. Okay, I'm circling back to let you know that I got off the Yale School of Management waitlist with a round 3 admits today. Or the second one, I want to thank you and Natalie for all of your help these past 2 years. I got accepted into all 3 programs I applied to and received a $20,000 scholarship from my top choice. None of this would have been possible without your help. The service you and your team provide literally just paid for itself. I'm extremely grateful. Thank you so much for all your help. It's now January. You can still get our support for your round 3 applications or work with your consultant to optimize your profile and be ready to hit the ground running for round 1 applications as they come out in the spring and summer. Contact us ASAP so you can access that guidance from scratch, or have your essays edited and reviewed, or discuss the best way for you to proceed given your profile, what's important to you, and your time frame. Let us guide you as we've guided the clients you've heard from in optimizing your application. Take these steps, the one on the screen, to work with an accepted MBA admissions consultant and have the kind of experience and success that these clients have had. At the same time, if you have questions for me now, either about our services or about the material discussed in this masterclass, please ask away. And actually, before you can post your questions, I see there are several questions in the question window. I have a question for you. Think back on what we discussed about round 3. Also be a good way for you to think of questions. My question for you in the chat window, please, is what did you find most helpful, insightful, or valuable in the presentation? What did you find most helpful, insightful, or valuable in the presentation? If you could, examples of different approaches and analysis of whether they should apply or not. Great. Thank you. The case studies and why we should wait. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. Case studies. Thank you. Anybody else want to share what they found? Well, that's very good feedback for me. Thank you. Confirmed that I should apply in round 3 and gave me the confidence to do so. Great, John. I guess we'll talk about it when since you were one of the winners. Explaining difference between the candidate's profile who is applying in round 3 or later. Good. Thank you for this feedback. This is great. Okay, now let's go on to your questions. I appreciate you helping me out with mine. I'll have another one later on for you too. Okay, so anonymous attendee is asking, do schools take into account the prestige of the undergraduate program if the GPA is relatively low? The answer to that is yes, it is factored in. They don't just look at the GPA, the number. They're going to look at the courses you took, yes, the reputation of the undergraduate institution you attended, as I illustrated with the example of Mary, who went to West Point, and any trend in your grades. They will also consider if there was like one semester that was problematic, was something going on that semester or quarter. Carly, can you post the link to accepted.com/137? I did a whole podcast on how to handle a low GPA. Again, then that's accepted.com/137, or you can post the real link to it. That's just one that I can remember easily. All right. Now, Perry asks if my GMAT score is way lower than a college's median acceptance score, but I have good experience, more than 10 years, and impressive extracurriculars. That's a kind of question that's really hard to answer in this forum, because there's so many things that go into it. Was it balanced? Were your grades good as an undergrad? What schools are you applying to? Are you applying to a part-time program, perhaps an MBA program, especially with more than 10 years? That can be very important. Or maybe you are one of those people, if you have really good grades and your GMAT score is low, that you should apply for a test waiver or aim for programs that are not requiring tests at all this year. MIT Sloan comes immediately to mind. Darden, well, they have waivers. Ross is not requiring tests this year. So, but a significantly below average GMAT score is definitely a hurdle. Okay. And I think we have some resources for that too. But the best thing to do is to prepare for and retake the GMAT or the GRE if you think you'll do better with that. You might want to consider intensifying your test prep if that was something that you feel you could do. If you did self-study, perhaps try an online course. If you did an online course, perhaps try a tutor. Obviously focus on areas of weakness and or aim for programs that are waiving the test. Okay. Does having a CPA license help or hurt my chances of getting into an MBA program? Well, a CPA license definitely will show that you pass the CPA exams and that you, I don't know what your grades are like, but they're more, it'll show quant skills, business insight, and all that. The challenge you might have as a CPA is having a clear goal. Why do you need the MBA if you have the CPA? What do you want to do with it that you can't do with the CPA alone? There are lots of things that you can answer that very legitimately. You also have to show the grades and everything else. So basically, I think the CPA license is a plus, but the challenge will be for you to show some distinctiveness in your application and an effective goal for your application. You're going to find that in most cases, there are, in almost everything, if you have this uh, great profile, but fairly common, you have to work harder to stand out in the applicant pool. If you have a non-traditional profile, then you have to show that you're going to fit in, that you can do the work, that you have relevant experience or experience that will be relevant to the conversations in business school. So everybody is going to have on some level one or the other of those two challenges. And actually, we also have a resource called Fitting In and Standing Out, which deals exactly with that paradox in the application process. And I think Carly will be posting that resource very shortly. Okay, so what do I suggest for an Indian female with a 700 score and 6+ years consulting experience with top consulting firms? You know, I have, I'm not quite sure what you're asking here in terms of round 3 or next year. I would, it depends on the schools you're applying to. If you're aiming for schools where you are very, very average in terms of your stats and your background, I would recommend waiting until round 1. If you're above average in terms of your stats and your background, then you have the visa issue to deal with. I would probably recommend if you're an Indian female in India or outside the United States, I would probably recommend waiting until round 1. If you're an Indian female in the United States with the information you provided and you're applying at schools where you will be above average in terms of your profile, I would probably say, and you really want to start in September, give it a go. Okay, so let's see. And there's Carly just posted the Fitting and Standing Out resource. Great. Thank you, Carly. Rania asked, if someone with a strong application gets rejected in round 3 only because of limited space, does she have to repeat the whole application for next year? Or can they use the same essays, recommendation letters, etc., since they would have been accepted in round 3 had there been more space? Well, you never know if you would have been accepted round 3 had there been more space. You're going to make an assessment and an assumption. You would be unwise, I think, to simply submit the same application because you want to show whatever growth you possibly can when you reapply. And there's almost always room for some improvement. I rarely, like even this masterclass, I've been giving this masterclass for several years. I always tweak and improve it, no matter what. This is not the same class. If you, I don't know why you'd want to, but if you could listen to last year's recording, you'd find that some things have changed. So some schools will allow you to just submit some kind of update reapplication essay. Many will insist that you submit a whole new application. And if you are asked to submit a whole new application, I would not simply submit what you submitted round 3 of this year. That would be recommendation letters. That varies again, school to school. Some will allow you to just use your recommendation letters from this year. Some will ask for new ones. Okay. Good question, though. Thank you. An anonymous attendee asks, if I have an excellent GPA in a non-great ranked university in Columbia, but I have a great GMAT, if I have an excellent GPA in a non-great university in Columbia, but I have a great GMAT, would that undermine my chances? As long as your university is accredited and you have an excellent GPA and an excellent GMAT, your academic stats are not going to undermine your chances. Okay. as long as it's accredited. The fact that you're coming from Columbia would add diversity elements to your profile also. What GMAT score do we need to aim for top MBA programs? You want a straight answer to that, right? I can't give you one because it depends a little bit on the rest of your profile. If you are from an overrepresented group and you want to apply to a top MBA program and you are an otherwise competitive applicant, you probably want to apply with at least a 730, maybe even a 740 if you're from an overrepresented group, or have fairly typical profile. If you have an unusual profile or underrepresented in some way, and you're aiming for the elite of elite MBA programs, that number could go down significantly, maybe even high 600s. And again, we're talking balanced scores. If English is a second language, they might cut you a little bit more slack in the verbal. So it's very hard to give you a number. I always tell applicants, aim for the highest score you can get and then deal with it. Okay, so thank you for that question, Rafael. Okay. Linda, I have 10 years of work experience in internet startups. I'm currently in a strategy role at a food delivery unicorn. I have a GRE of 332, but I don't have an undergraduate degree. Schools like London Business School will let me apply, but is round 3 a good idea? Again, that depends a lot on you. You may also want to consider London Business School Sloan Fellows Program, which is for people with 10 years of experience. Or possibly even the Stanford MSX program or the MIT Sloan Fellows program. I'm not sure if they will accept somebody without a bachelor's degree. I'm not sure about the other two programs. I do know that London Business School will consider it. So, I mean, again, your chances of acceptance, I think, are slightly reduced round 3, but you have great experience. You have that great GRE score. It's kind of a risk aversion question. How risk averse are you? If you are really risk averse, wait for round 1. If you're not so risk averse, then give it a go. Okay, we have anonymous attendee asking, can I take a break from work if there are personal issues? Does it hurt my chances for business school? It depends. People do take breaks from works for personal issues. The answer really depends. I can't give you a yes or no answer. How long will the break be? What is the nature of the personal issues? You don't have to answer that here. How has your work progression been to date? All those questions would come into play and to answer that question effectively. Does it hurt your chances for business school? On some level, it probably will, because your competition is working and getting more experience and getting more responsibility and leadership exposure, etc., while you're taking the break. On the other hand, sometimes taking a break for personal issues is not only the best thing to do, it's the right thing to do, and schools will admire that. So there's lots of factors at play here, and I can't be less mealy-mouthed than I'm currently being. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, let's go. Shubham is asking, low GPA, 2 to 3 years of work experience, average work profile, 680 GMAT, good leadership skills and extracurriculars. Which round would you suggest? What schools are you interested in? It does make a difference. I would probably, that makes a big difference. So why don't you post what schools you're interested in also, okay? Okay, Ozzy asks, I have a 3.3 GPA from a credit school in Nigeria and a 331 GRE score, which is I know is a very high GRE score. Ozzy adds that it converts to a 750 GMAT. 5+ years of experience in business finance, entrepreneur on the side, managing construction professionals and team lead in a charity in Nigeria. What do you think my chances are in round 3? I assume you're, what schools are you aiming for? That's a kind of key question here. I think, so why don't you let me know that, and we'll go back to this. One asks, my chances would be affected if I have multiple years of work experience during and before getting my degree, but I got my degree 6 months before applying. It depends what you were doing. One, if your work experience is qualitatively MBA competitive work experience, then it's going to count as work experience, and that's what's going to count. Okay. Thinking to apply for top Canadian. This is Shubham, Tom Rotman, Ivy, UBC, to name a few. I would probably wait. Okay. But that's just based on the information you provided here. Let's see. Now, Perry asked, does rejection in round 3 this year reduce my chances into round 1 of next year? Indian female based in UK with honors postgrad degree, good IT experience, 15 years. Are you applying to EMBA programs, Perry, or to Sloan Fellows programs or the MSX in Stanford? Because those programs generally have higher acceptance rates for later round applicants. It's a little bit different than full-time. And given your level of experience, you might be better off with one of those programs. Okay. Ozzy is targeting Kellogg, Columbia, Cornell, and Booth. And he wrote, I have a 3.3 GPA from a credit school in Nigeria. I think you'll be given very serious consideration by those programs. Okay, you are from Africa, which is underrepresented, so you'll add diversity points. You have a very high GMAT. I would say go for it. Anonymous attendee asks, are top European schools relatively easier to get into round 3? I think so. I haven't seen data on that, but that's my sense. That's my sense. Again, I haven't seen data though. Okay. Let's see. Anonymous attendee asks, I have 5 years of work experience. Will have 6 if I wait until next year. Will it hurt my application to have more than 5 years of work experience? Well, it depends how much more, but 6 will not hurt. Okay. Will a higher GPA from a non-quant major be viewed more favorably than a lower GPA from a quant major? It depends how high and how low. I'm really sorry to be giving such vague answers, but that's really the truth. If I took a second major while working with my first major, they were engineering programs. In my second major, I was a first student. While my first major, I was below average. Does that undermine my chances? Again, I'd have to see details, trends, reasons, etc. I really can't respond. It's not going to be as impressive as being first student only, I don't think. But anyways, I'd have to know more details to really respond to that. Okay. And with that, I want to share with you a final thought and story, and then I have a question for you. And I want to thank you for coming, for your questions, your time, your attention. You've been a fantastic audience. I really appreciate the participation and thought that you've given here. Now, the thought that I want to share, you're about to invest out of pocket over $120,000 in terms of the value of the tuition and approximately 21 months of your life to obtain an MBA. The purpose of obtaining an MBA is to improve your professional opportunities such that your enhanced earning capacity and the personal rewards you get will far exceed the cost. Per GMAC data, for the overwhelming majority of MBA grads, that is true. Given the stakes and the benefits of an MBA, doesn't it make sense to invest a few $100s? Our minimum is $330 to get into the best school for you. And here's a story of one client who had some special circumstances when he applied. Not necessarily bad, but definitely different. And he wrote, Linda and Jennifer, I'm going to not read the whole thing, but most of it. Thank you so much for your personalized help with every step of my application. I decided to accept the GSB's offer to begin my MBA this year. I am humbled and grateful for how you went the extra mile to advise me. It means a lot to me and has left a deep impression on me that you continue to invest so much of your valuable time in advising me. Let's face it, everyone has special circumstances. You're all different, and you all deserve the individual guidance that will spin the wheels and help you to optimize your applications so that you can get into the MBA program that will skyrocket your career, whether it be round 3 of this year or next year. Engage with a guide who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite schools so that you can pursue your dream career. To get that guidance, follow the steps on the screen, which are the steps taken by all the applicants you've heard from. They were once nervously considering when, where, and how to apply. Is that perhaps what you're experiencing now? They sought acceptance help and successfully navigated the MBA application process to acceptance. They applied confidently and successfully. Are you going to say, are all your clients accepted? No, but our clients do enjoy an acceptance rate that's roughly 50% more or more than the overall acceptance rate at top MBA programs. These clients are now pursuing their dreams. Have you considered doing as they did and pursuing your dreams too? And now I have a question for you, and you can answer wherever you want. You've stayed for the masterclass. You stayed for the pitch. You stayed for the Q&A. You certainly seem to be interested in what I have to say. And I'm curious, if you are not already a client or planning to become a client of Acceptance, would you be willing to share your reasons for not engaging one-on-one with Accepted? I'm really curious about your answer. You've been a fantastic audience, and I'm wondering if you'll share that with me. Anybody want to share their thoughts? Would you be willing to share your reasons? Financial. Okay. Do you know that we now offer payment plans through a firm? Actually, that's only for U.S. residents, and I think you said you were not a U.S. resident. Okay, Michael, that's great. Well, we'll talk. I'm in the UK. Okay. Okay, so Juan says primarily for the initial cost, taking into account the uncertainty of not knowing how good my profile is. Okay, I understand that. I think that's very logical, but realize that a consultation, a 1-hour consultation, can cost $330. That's slightly more than one application fee, which tend to be in the, no, actually, it's about 2 application fees. I'm sorry. Though they've been going up, they could already be over $200. So you could be applying ineffectively for the same money as talking to us would cost you and get advice as to how you could apply effectively to multiple programs. You understand, Juan? So just again, the costs and the benefits here. I understand that money is an issue, and that's one of the reasons that we do have a firm. I'm not sure it goes to the UK, but again, we do offer free consultations for those people considering our services. There's a definite benefit to working with us, okay, and it can pay off big time. ROI, return on investment. All right. Anybody else want to share an answer? You didn't know what, Juan? I'm sorry, I missed that about the cost, the point I made about cost. Well, I hope that helps you. I hope it. you pay application fees, you pay test fees that exceed the cost. That's right. Yeah, no, we do give a free consultation for those people considering our services. Okay. That we can also kind of see if the value is there for you. Anybody else want to share why they're okay, Michael, you're weighing different options, and again, we'll speak because you won a consultation. And it would really help me out if you could share why you are not engaging with Accepted. You're very welcome, Juan. And we work with people all around the world. We have consultants in the UK, in Israel, who actually works with most of our Indian consultants. We have consultants in the United States. We have some consultants who speak Spanish, Portuguese, variety of languages. Though most of our consultations are in English. All right. Well, weighing options between Accepted and other firms' private consultants. Okay, that's fair enough. I do want to point out that we are probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest, admissions consultancies in business. And again, if you are weighing options, I would invite you to sign up for a free consultation and check us out. Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you very much. You've been a fantastic audience. I really appreciated the participation. And I want to just wish you good luck with your applications, whether you apply round 3 or next year. So good luck to you all. Thank you again. Take care. Stay safe. You're very welcome, Perry.